Okay, so we're going to talk about a little more of what we can do with this idea of quartiles here for just a little bit. And so the first thing is we can do what's called a 5-number summary. And so basically what this consists of is your 3 quartiles, so Q1, Q2 are the median, and Q3, along with the minimum and the maximum. And you traditionally put these in order from least to greatest. So now the other thing is that when you do your one bar stats on a calculator, this is actually the last 5 values that are on that when you scroll down that list. You have min, Q1, mean, Q3, and maximum, okay? So now, one of the things that we want to talk about when we do these is what are called outliers. And so we know that we're going to have some values that are higher or lower. But the question is how far out are we allowing stuff to go before we start to go, that's a little too high or that's a little too low, okay? So outliers are values that are considerably larger or smaller than the most of the values that are in our data set, okay? Some of this can happen from errors, okay, like data entry error, a decimal place got missed points, so something all of a sudden is larger or smaller than others. Some of them are correct or actual like data point values, and you just have something that's kind of extreme. Now, the idea here is, okay, so imagine, when you're growing up, you live on your road, okay? And so when I was growing up, we lived in kind of the middle of the block, okay? And so what happened was mom was willing to let me go 2 houses down, okay, each direction, okay? She could see me. If she walked down in our front yard, she could look down the street either direction, and she could see me if I was in Alice's yard 2 houses down, or if I was in Betsy's yard, two doors down the other direction, okay? So mom was fine with that because she could see me. Now, she was willing to let me go 3 houses down because my mom could whistle really loud, okay? And I knew that if I heard that whistle, I better get my butt home, okay? But I could hear that whistle at 3 houses down. So if I was down at Christine's house, which was on the other side of Alice, or I was at Daphne's house on the other side of Betsy, I could still hear that whistle. So mom was cool if I wound up down at Christine's or Daphne's because she could whistle even though she couldn't hear me. So she was willing to let me go that far out. Now, if I was any further out than Christine's or Daphne's, that meant I was further out than she could whistle and I could hear her or she could see me. I was now too far out from the house. I was at an outlier position and I was going to get in trouble for that, okay? So the question is, how do we determine what's past Christine's and what's past Daphne's houses, okay, when this happens? So the first thing that we've got to do is what's called the interquartile range, okay? And so the way that we find the interquartile range is we do Q3, whatever that value may be, minus Q1, okay? So we're going to go back and look at that data set from number 2, okay? So here's my data set from number 2. It was that one that went from 3 to 26. And we're now going to find our interquartile range, okay? So our interquartile range, which is Q3 minus Q1, is going to be 8 minus 4, which is 4. So our interquartile range, Q3 minus Q1, which is a value of 8 and 4, gives me an interquartile range value of 4. Okay, and we're going to use that calculation here in just a second. Okay, so now the question is, how far out do we go? Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to find your quartiles, which we've already done. You're going to get that interquartile range. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take that interquartile range and you're going to multiply by 1.5. Okay, and it's going to give you a number value. And then you're going to take that and you're going to subtract it from Q1. So you're on that lower side of that data set and you're going to subtract this 1.5 times IQR value. And that's going to give you this, what's called a lower boundary. Anything outside of that boundary, I'm past Christine's house, okay? I'm fixing to be in trouble. I'm too far out. I'm in an outlier position. In order to find the upper one, you're going to take that same 1.5 times that interquartile range and you're going to add it onto your Q3, okay, and add that up. Anything that's outside of that is also going to be considered an outlier. That means I'm past Daphne's house, okay? So let's go back and look at that data set and let's hash out what those boundary fences are going to be. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do 1.5 times that IQR, which is going to be 1.5 times 4, which is 6. Okay, so now in order to find my lower boundary, I'm going to do Q1 minus that 6 number that we just got. So my Q1 is 4 minus 6, which is -2. Okay, so if there are any of my data points, mostly it's going to happen in this first chunk, that are below -2, then they're considered outliers. Now, everything is above that, so I don't have any low side outliers. Now, to find my upper boundary, we're going to do Q3 plus 6. And again, we're using that same 6. So this is going to be 8 plus 6, which is 14. So now, when I look up here, any values that are higher than 16, or excuse me, 14, higher than 14 are outliers. 26 is bigger. So 26 is an outlier. Okay, and it doesn't matter how close I am, as long as I'm on that boundary or inside, it's not an outlier. Okay,